The air was crisp as we pulled up to the edge of the dense forest, our truck packed to the brim with camping gear. It was supposed to be the perfect weekend getaway before senior year got too crazy. Just me, Jake, Anna, and MIA, best friends since middle school. We had been planning this trip for weeks. The forest was darker than we had imagined, even with the sun still hovering above the horizon. Towering pines closed in around us, their branches knitting together to form a canopy that seemed to swallow the light. The air smelled damp, a mix of pine and decaying leaves, and the distant caw of a crow punctuated the unsettling silence. Jake was the first to speak up as we unloaded the truck. "Man, this place looks like something out of a horror movie," he joked, kicking a rock down the narrow trail. "Don't jinx it," Anna shot back, rolling her eyes but clutching her sleeping bag a little tighter. MIA stayed quiet, staring into the forest as if she could see something we couldn't. When I nudged her, she shook her head. "Just got a weird vibe, that's all." We hiked about a mile into the forest before finding a clearing near a small stream. It was perfect, secluded but not too far from the truck in case we needed to leave quickly. The forest seemed to hum with its own life, a symphony of rustling leaves, distant animal calls, and the occasional creak of branches overhead. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the shadows grew longer and more menacing, twisting into shapes that seemed to shift when you weren't looking. We set up our tents and built a fire. The warmth and flickering light made the forest feel less intimidating, and soon we were laughing, roasting marshmallows, and telling stupid ghost stories. Jake was in the middle of a particularly gruesome tale about a vengeful spirit when we heard it, a long, low howl that echoed through the trees. It was the kind of sound that seemed to vibrate in your chest, primal and haunting. We all froze. "Coyote?" I suggested, though my voice didn't sound as confident as I'd hoped. "Maybe," Jake said, but his eyes darted to the shadows beyond the firelight. "It's fine," Anna said firmly. "We're in the woods. Animals make noises." We tried to brush it off, but the mood had shifted. Every snap of a twig or rustle of leaves seemed amplified in the heavy silence of the forest. By the time we crawled into our tents, even Jake had stopped joking. I don't know what woke me. One moment I was dreaming of something mundane. The next I was wide awake, heart hammering in my chest. The fire had burned down to embers, casting just enough light to see shadows shifting outside my tent. At first, I thought it was Jake or Anna, maybe even MIA. But the shape was wrong, too tall, too still. "Jake!" I whispered. No response. The shadow moved. Slowly, deliberately. My breath caught in my throat as it came closer to my tent. I could see it more clearly now. A figure, humanoid but impossibly lean, its limbs too long, its head tilted at an unnatural angle. The air seemed to grow colder, and the faint scent of something metallic, like rust or blood, filled my nose. I scrambled for my flashlight, my hand shaking so badly I almost dropped it. When I finally managed to flick it on and shine it at the tent wall, the figure was gone. "Guys!" I hissed, unzipping my tent. "Wake up!" Jake was the first to emerge, clutching a pocket knife. "What? What happened?" I pointed to where I'd seen the figure, my words tumbling out in a rush. Anna and MIA joined us, both looking pale and uneasy. "It was probably just an animal," Anna said, though she didn't sound convinced. MIA shook her head. "That wasn't an animal." We spent the rest of the night huddled together by the fire, adding wood until it blazed brightly again. The forest seemed to close in around us, the darkness pressing against the edges of the firelight. Every so often, we'd hear faint noises, branches snapping, leaves crunching, but nothing came close. The fire cast eerie shadows that danced along the trunks of the trees, making it seem as though the forest itself was alive and watching us. Around noon the next day, we decided to explore the area, hoping that daylight would make the forest feel less oppressive. About a mile from our campsite, we stumbled across something unexpected, a cabin. It was small and decrepit, its wooden walls covered in moss and vines, as if the forest was trying to reclaim it. "Should we check it out?" Jake asked, already stepping closer. "I don't think this is a good idea," MIA said, her voice trembling. "It's probably abandoned," Jake said, shrugging. "Could be cool to see inside." The door creaked ominously as Jake pushed it open. The inside was dark and musty, with a single broken chair and a table covered in dust. A strange symbol was carved into the wall, jagged and unfamiliar. MIA refused to step inside, staying near the doorway as the rest of us explored. "Look at this," Anna said, holding up a faded photograph she found on the floor. It was of a family, parents and 2 children, but their faces were scratched out. My stomach churned. "That's enough," I said. "Let's go." We left the cabin quickly, but the sense of unease followed us back to camp. That night, the tapping noises started again, louder and closer than before. As we sat by the fire, trying to shake off the feeling of dread, a new sound broke the silence, a series of snapping branches, as if something large was moving through the woods. The tapping grew louder, more frantic, like it was surrounding us. Then we saw it, a pair of glowing eyes reflecting the firelight, just beyond the edge of the clearing. "Run!" Jake shouted, grabbing a burning branch from the fire. We bolted into the woods, our flashlights bobbing wildly as we tried to navigate the uneven terrain. The thing chased us, its footsteps heavy and fast. I didn't dare look back. We finally reached the truck, piling in and slamming the doors. Jake fumbled with the keys, his hands shaking, as the tapping sound grew louder, now right outside the vehicle. When the engine roared to life, we sped away, the headlights illuminating the dark road ahead. In the row view mirror, I saw it standing at the edge of the forest, its glowing eyes watching us. For weeks after we returned home, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Nightmares plagued my sleep, visions of long, clawed hands reaching for me from the shadows. MIA stopped talking altogether, withdrawing from us and spending most of her time indoors. Jake buried himself in work, refusing to acknowledge what had happened. Anna tried to rationalize it, but I could see the fear lingering in her eyes. We never spoke about that night again, but sometimes, when the wind howls just right, I hear the tapping,